Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Duke of Italy, your favorite lo-fi month of May, final part. It's over. Music YouTuber here, and ladies and gentlemen, it is the final nu metal video I ever have to make. I guess technically I didn't have to make it, but due to principle, I did. But if everything goes according to plan, which nothing this year has gone according to plan, I'll have a couple more parts of some nu metal content later in the year, like how last year I had all that extra Drain Gang stuff, because I love them. From the bottom of my heart, I love Drain Gang. I don't have anything in my heart for nu metal, except a couple bands. One last time, who made the thumbnail? Jen made the thumbnail. Please follow Jen on Instagram and buy Jen's art. Jen's the homie. Jen makes some thumbnails for me. Jen is great. But last time we talked about some more nu metal. We had some great albums. We had some not great albums, like every video does. And today it's the same. And we have only 5 more albums on this chart, so it should be a pretty short video today. But I decided before covering those, I would talk about some stuff that Jen recommended, because Jen is really into nu metal. Aren't you guys lucky? You get extra recommendations. Thank you, Jennifer. Now, this is what Jen texted me on Snapchat. This is what Jen said. Orgy, the band I didn't love that much, with Vapor Transmission. Kitty with Spit. Fear Factory with Digimortal. I know Fear Factory is like industrial metal. Maybe Jen's wrong about that. You can go grill Jen on their Instagram page or Discord or Twitter if you add them. I'm not plugging those though. Get Some by Snot. That's actually a band I probably should have covered at some point, but I didn't. Primer 55 with Introduction to Mayhem. And, quote, hell, I would even mention A Perfect Circle. Mare de Noms falls a bit into the sound and came out with a lot of those. Oh, Through the Eyes by Flaw kind of slaps. Check that one out too. And Commencement by Deadsy. This is the first time I've ever recommended stuff I don't know anything about, but I trust Jen's opinion enough. Jen cannot make a playlist to save their life, but you know what? Jen does like some good music. And one little bonus I'll add that is honestly something that you should listen to before any of these is Roots by Sepultura. Sepultura is a founding metal band in the 80s, one of the most early extreme metal bands. Maybe not the absolute earliest, but they were definitely part of that first wave of everything. They started Brazilian metal. They were hugely influential on death, thrash, and to an extent black metal. Because other than them, you had Sarcophago and Holocausto that were the black metal bands. And death metal in Brazil, that's not something I know anything about. And thrash metal in Brazil, it's again those other 2 bands. Sepultura was kind of that. And they kind of became nu metal towards the turn of the century in a way. But that was back in 96. So, they had a bit of a ways to go before all this stuff hit. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I wanted to cover something good before I cover the first album of today, Disturbed, The Sickness. I tweeted about this one time. Guitar Hero 3 is the greatest game of all time because it made you believe that Disturbed was a good band. This album is terrible. And I don't mean like kind of terrible, bad, but forgivable. No, it's like offensively bad. Positives out of the way first. I think the guitar tone is solid. I think it is solid. That's it. The drums are fine. Passable, maybe. Good, no. But what's funny is, Down with the Sickness, as big of a single as it is, oh my gosh, should that thing not be played on radio? Not just because it's bad, but because you have the whole melodramatic spoken word section about abuse that is quite frankly tasteless, which I don't know what that is. Now, of course, this is not the album with Stricken, so if you were wondering, Disturbed has a good song, and it's Stricken. Seriously, I think that song is dope. I think the guitar solo is pretty solid. The dude's vocal performance, I don't even know his name. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't have that much respect for Disturbed. But it's good. I could compare this album to Undertow by Tool if it was terrible. It has all the angst, but like none of the pointedness and none of the meaning or depth or interesting musicianship. There's also a cover of the song Shout, the Tears for Fears song. I don't know why so many new metal bands were covering 80s songs. It's like blatantly disrespectful to like actual metal history to cover synth pop from the 80s. I mean, if you're an industrial tinged band, you can kind of do that, but Disturbed, not as much as the other bands. The electronics here are terrible though, so I don't want to hear any post-industrial or synth pop or synthwave or new wave influence here because it didn't help at all, clearly. And what's funny is on a Down With The Sickness, you know, the iconic part is the ooh wah ah ah. I didn't do the impression because it's not good. It's terrible. And you'd think like, oh, that's probably like one-time thing, because like people joke about that and it's like, well, he probably just came up with that on the fly in the studio. Maybe. But if he did that first, then he came up with different vocal inflections on different tracks. Different album, but stricken again. Instead of ooh wah ah ah, he goes wah ah ah ow to begin it. But it actually sounds kind of dope. I won't even lie to you guys. I'm a Stricken fan. What can I say? But this album blows. It's seriously terrible. There's nothing good here. All the songs are bad. Shout is like okay from a songwriting perspective, but they didn't write it. Poor. But hey, we got a good album now. Maybe the last good album of the chart. The last great album of this chart. System of a Down, Toxicity. Another album that I dismissed my senior year of high school because I was a loser. But this album is actually nuts. Is it new metal? Straight up, like, no, it's not new metal at all. It's alternative metal. There are certainly influences of thrash, bit of death metal, especially on the vocal front. There are occasionally stuff like that. Certainly a lot of groove metal. Alternative metal and groove metal have that crossover state, minus like the breakdowns that happen in groove metal occasionally. Up with Rage Against the Machine, this is the most political album on the chart. It does kind of qualify as new metal, as like Slipknot did in a way, but not that much. But tracks like X are just as percussive as new metal gets. But there are seriously so many classics on this album, I don't even know where to start. And I don't know the theory behind this, and this might sound insensitive, but there are a lot of Middle Eastern sounding melodies. Darren Malakian brings a lot of that on the guitar front. And of course, Serj Tankian on the vocal front brings that as well, and Darren also on the vocal front, and I believe Serj on the guitar front as well. I know he played rhythm at points. But seriously, it is all bangers. There are a lot of subdued moments and genuinely amazing parts that make this thing work super well. Genuinely an amazing album, very poignant, aged particularly well. Songs like Toxicity, I still love today. Classic after classic after classic. Really, really, really worth all the hype. Seriously, perfectly rated System of a Down, Toxicity. This is a great album. And up next, we have a band that I had to cover at some point, Static X with Machine. No, this is not Wisconsin Death Trip. I've had a lot of people complain to me personally when I talked about this chart that there's no Wisconsin Death Trip. I didn't make this, guys. Yes, there probably should have been Wisconsin Death Trip instead of Machine. Machine is like not even that much new metal. It's a lot more industrial metal. It's weird because it's never great, but it's never bad. And the vocals are semi-harsh, but never fully harsh. Thank you, Wayne Static, kind of a legendary figure. Rest in peace. I will say the last two tracks on this album are quite good and genuinely enjoyable. And, funnily enough, of all the bands on this chart that have had industrial influences and how none of them have really worked, Static X makes it work better than the rest. I think this album is okay, but Wisconsin Death Trip is really the album to check out. And after that, we have Flyleaf's Self-Titled. This probably shouldn't be here either. It's a lot more pop punk than new metal, but it is a bit heavier than pop punk, and it's Christian. Straight up, every lyric on this thing is Christian. Like borderline prayer songs, and female vocals too, and sung for the majority. Despite there being a lot of post-grunge influence, it's never that bad. Harsh vocals here are certainly rare, but they are also very strong every time they happen. The song Red Sand is genuinely awesome, and I think you should check it out. It's not perfect, but hey, Christ is king, so I'm gonna say it's good. And here. It's 311. In the immortalized words of Seth Putnam, rest in peace, 311 sucks. Before going into this album, I knew Down. After this album, I realized Down wasn't so bad because the rest of the album is worse. No, this album's not really new metal. It's like alternative rock with a bit of an alternative metal flair. It's not super new metal, but it's rap metal at the same time. And it just sucks. It's so freaking bad. Imagine if Sublime had no good songs instead of just a few good songs. Yeah, it's terrible. Awful singing, single-digit IQ levels of virtue signaling. It's really stupid. Every political thing said on this thing makes Sublime look like actual political philosophers, which I don't know how you do that because Sublime were never that smart to begin with. Little story time for you guys. My uncle has seen Sublime live. Not Sublime with Rome. Sublime. In the 90s in Long Beach. And what he said to me was that they were terrible because they were just so strung out on heroin. But Duke of Italy will admit some studio stuff of theirs isn't that bad. I like a few of those songs. What I Got is classic. It's the California in me. And also they're not 311, so that's just another reason to love them. Yeah, 311 is poor. I don't know why I don't do it. All right, and that's the end of the chart. But surprise. I got bonus albums for you guys. I have 6. And up first, Linkin Park's Meteora. Is it as good as Hybrid Theory? No. Slightly. Not as good, just slightly. It's aged slightly better. It's a lot more singing parts. The final track, Numb, is awesome. Faint is a banger. Love that one. And it's less of a banger of an album compared to Hybrid Theory. It's a lot more sadness over the rage, you know? And you got songs like Breaking the Habit, for example, that show a lot of anguish here, and a lot more singing from Chester Bennington, and he has a great voice. I also love Nobody's Listening, and Numb might be my favorite Linkin Park track because it's just so beautiful. But I gotta say, it's a good album. And up next, I'm covering Slipknot's Self-Titled. It's better than Iowa. Chuggy guitar, breakbeat sequences, so percussive. Every song is great. Really, really solid riffs, and even space for the bass to work magic. Corey Taylor's voice is not as distinct as it would be in the future, but it sounds great here. It fits in the mix super well. It's got a lot of character, but the sort of groove metal style of death growls he's going with here, they work really well, and they don't come across as like too unique to be in this specific vein here, but it's not like bad by any means. Slipknot, of course, is a huge band, and all the textures that every member adds does affect this album here, and every song is better because of it. Wait and Bleed is a great song to get into this album with because of the clean singing, and it's just awesome. Dude, the blast beats from Joey Jordison on this thing are freaking so clean, so nice. The snare sounds a lot like Korn. I don't know why, it just does. Those turntables are awesome. Seriously iconic stuff. Seriously, constant bangers all the way through, and even like the ending tracks like Scissors and Eeyore are just, yeah, this thing's great. Slipknot Self-Titled is like one of the best alternative new metal albums out there. You know, it's kind of that dividing line, but wow, was it something. And up next, Limp Bizkit, Significant Other. It's freaking dope. Like shut up. It's good. Yeah, it's based. It's fun. It's bouncy. Just Like This is a banger opener. Maybe the best Limp Bizkit opening track, at least out of the first 3 records. In a way, it is a peak of nu metal as an unemotional genre. Of course, you got bands like Korn, Slipknot, Linkin Park that are emotional. This is completely unserious memes right here. And that's the thing about Limp Bizkit. It's mostly ironic. It's joking. But Duke, there are no rooms for jokes in metal. Dude, I would literally shove you in a locker, and I'm 5'6". Like, come on. If you can't hear I'm Broke and see zero good humor, then I think you're just a lost cause for society. And the song Trust is in 7/8 for a bit, so if you think they're not intelligent, you're wrong. But yeah, it's based. It's not a perfect album. It's Limp Bizkit. Let's be honest with ourselves here, but it is a good album. It's good. And up next, of course, Slipknot, Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses. It's pretty awesome. It is the most commercial attempt from Slipknot up until that point, because this was a long time ago. And it's pretty great. You know, you have a lot more sung songs here, and they all work pretty well. It's Slipknot that's certainly into their own style at this point. This is the most Slipknot album up to that point, and it's probably the best example of Slipknot at their most normal. Maybe the most accessible Slipknot album, quite possibly, but it's one of the better ones too. Great extreme metal influence, always a thing with Slipknot. Duality and Before I Forget are classics. Before I Forget is one of my favorites. The riffs are great and particularly groovy on this album, and the electronics are very creative, have a little bit of ambient spin on them for this album. And the B-side is super intuitive. It's basically an alt-rock side. Of course, the guitars are still pretty heavy, but I love how intuitive it is. If you don't like this album, then I don't even know what you're talking about. I feel kind of weird talking about Slipknot this late into my career, my life, and just to anybody. And I feel kind of weird because they're so popular right now. I've seen it, but I cannot tell a lie. It's great. And come on, I had to cover this album at some point. Deftones, Around the Fur. Come on, so good, so good. MX is too long. There's your flaw. Yeah, the guitar parts are like a lot of power chords and like not complicated at all, but like this thing is just so well done, well executed. Everything works. Starting off with My Own Summer, that's awesome. Chunky, simple guitars, it works. This honestly should have been here over White Pony, but I mean, I'm not making the chart. It helps that Chino Moreno's voice is just so unique, probably the most unique vocalist in nu metal, or alternative metal, if you will. But then he's up against like Serj Tankian, so he's close, he's unique. Really cool guitar dynamics as well. Head Up is one of the most like slimy nu metal tracks here. It's really percussive and really aggressive, but it's dope. Yeah, it's a classic. It should be here. It's great. And there's one more. Limp Bizkit, Chocolate Starfish, keep on rolling, baby. That's all I gotta say about that one. But for real, it's got like the best 3-song run in nu metal. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. That's... I never have to talk about nu metal again, thank God. That's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys like these albums that I don't like, call me an idiot down below. Like, subscribe, join my Discord, my Instagram, my Twitter, Jen's Instagram. What? Jen's Twitter? I'm probably not going to put that in the description because I just be copying stuff because I'm lazy. Follow it. Please follow Jen. Jen deserves you to buy Jen's art, please. But more importantly, subscribe to this channel so you can watch me talk about music that's better than 90% of what I've said in this series here. Admittedly, there's some good stuff. But that's about it. Hope you guys are doing well. Have a good day. Bye.